Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Your Business Story. I'm your host, Kristin Spencer, the person who cares about your copy the most. And today we have an amazing guest with us, Rebecca Leader. Thank you, Rebecca, so much for coming on the show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing well. And at first I thought you said that you care more about everyone's coffee than copy.
Yes, I do care some about their coffee, definitely not as much as I do about their copy. So thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, no problem.
Okay, so you are on the show today. You're an author, an educator, a trainer, an instructional designer. You have a lot of amazing things going on. Is that fair to say?
Thank you. I do. And I've always sort of had worn multiple hats, but probably similar to you as a copywriter, I'm a big fan of coming up with a theme underlying with all of those things. So a common thread. And so with all of those things, I have a passion for helping individuals and organizations and teams build more meaningful work, build more meaningful careers. And
Yes.
at the root of that is my life mission, which is to bring people together. So whether that's around a dinner table at a dinner party or whether that's in a workshop to help people learn how to collaborate more effectively internally in an organization, or helping people build meaningful careers in a live online course or through coaching. All of that is about building relationships and bringing people together. So that's sort of my underlying theme.
Nice. So you're a people person then. Is that fair to say?
I would say yes, and I am also a misunderstood introverted extrovert as a people person.
Okay, I would love to hear a tiny bit more about that because I'm extremely introverted. And yet here I am hosting a podcast. So what do you mean by introverted extrovert?
Sure, I'm curious if it's similar for you, but I do love to build relationships and I do love to be around people, and that fills up my cup. And I also love to sort of slow down, do some
Mm.
yoga, go for a hike, just have some time to think and to write. And that's sort of the introverted side. So I sort of need that balance to fill me up and make me feel energized to be in the company of amazing humans.
Okay, so you need both things.
Correct.
Okay, so have you heard the phrase ambivert?
It sounds familiar. Tell me more.
So it's someone who needs different parts of the different aspects of being an introvert and an extrovert. But of course, it encompasses so many things. I don't know if the one word is as helpful as we would like it to be, but it sounds like you know yourself really well and you know, okay, I need these things to address my introvert side and I need these other things to address my extrovert side.
Yes, I would say so. How about you?
Yeah, I'm definitely just like an introvert. I really have to push myself to be more extroverted. And the way that I've learned to trick my brain is that I care so much about people that it kind of calms my what would be my anxiety, because if I don't talk to someone, I can't find out about their story. I can't figure out how I can help them. I can't understand what big things they need to just have an ear for right now and be listened to about. So that's how I motivate myself to go out and do what I do every day. And then I was joking with my husband yesterday that then I hibernate into a human bear on my rug in my office for 16 hours.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. It takes a lot of energy to gear up for the conversation, and then afterwards there's always the decompression. But it sounds like you align with sort of your values and your purpose to sort of push through that challenge.
right. And I know that's something that you talk about in your book, which I read a big chunk of this morning.
Thank you.
So we're definitely going to talk about that. But I feel like the questions tie into what's in your book as well. So are you ready for question number one?
I think so. We'll see.
Okay. So what is the most important problem that you solve for your client? And you work with organizations and individuals, right?
That's correct. I work with both. The most important problem that I'm solving is to fill the confidence and education gap when it comes to building deeper career relationships. And what I mean by that is that many people want to be building relationships in their careers. Sometimes we feel like it falls off after we've made the initial connection and we don't keep the door open, or we don't know when the right time is to sort of follow up, or if it feels like we're nagging.
Right.
So a lot of times that comes up is I connected, but I don't know how to sort of keep that going. Other times it's I have stage fright. I don't want to push the button to hit send and introduce myself and fear of failure, whatever you define failure as, which in my mind, a lot of that, you may not get a flat out no in response to your email, but you might not get any response at all, which could mean the person's busy, right? But we create these emotions in our head and these stories that, why would someone respond to me? I'm bothering them. And so that's sort of the confidence gap. And also what comes with that is, how do I reach out to open the door with someone? How do I approach this meeting? How do I prepare for this big presentation for my leadership? How do I build these relationships? And what are the actual steps to do it? Because we hear, it's who you know that matters, or we hear, you have to network. But a lot of times we don't break it down into really the basic level of how to do it. And I think that's where we get often stuck, is that we want to do it, we see the value, but we don't know what to do. And so that's where the education comes in, and the knock method, which is my 5-step framework for building high quality career relationships, comes in. It is a step-by-step guide. Hopefully that came through to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your initial thoughts. And it does have resources included in the book as well. And I have free downloadable resources on my website. But essentially, the classes that I teach, the workshops, the trainings that I do are really very applicable, hands-on, so that we can get down to that base level of how do I go about building these relationships, even if I'm at the most introverted introvert that exists. How do I do it? I have my heart's racing. I haven't even met this person yet, but I don't know what to do. And so the education balances out the confidence. And my point of view is, when you are more prepared, your confidence will rise and you'll feel more comfortable and confident. And also you'll feel like you can be authentic and be yourself when you come to that relationship.
I love that. And I also, okay, two things about me. First of all, you don't know this, but I'm obsessed with frameworks, like literally obsessed. I have frameworks for everything. So when I saw that you had like the framework and you had, knock, which is, oh gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? An acronym, right?
Yes.
I was like, yay. And also it's a really smart acronym. It's not one of those weird ones where someone was trying to make it work and it didn't really work. You know what I mean?
I'm glad to hear that, because it used to be 8 steps, and I got some really valuable feedback from someone whose feedback I very much value. And they, reminded me that 5 steps or less is really where we can get into the memory zone. So
yeah,
I'm glad to hear it doesn't feel, because I did have to sort of twist and turn a few of the steps to make sure that it made sense and it was logical and it fit.
It's great. And we do have a few viewers live. So if you have any questions for Rebecca, go ahead and drop them in the comments and we'll try to get to them by the end of the show. So thanks everyone who's tuning in. We're having a blast together, having some morning, or I guess in my time, it's almost afternoon coffee, right? So I'm curious, because I'm a confidence person. Like, I talk about confidence all the time. I've written books about it. That's how I got my start, actually, as a writer, and as a best-selling author. Was my first book was about confidence, and it just took off. And I had no idea it was a success, because I was just that inexperienced. I was like, oh, 30,000 copies, that's not a big deal. And then, 10 years later, I was like, oh my gosh, that really happened. So how do you deal with, like, I know you said that when you prepare, you're more confident, but do you think there's anything else that they need to do aside from prepare by, like, knowing more about the person they're interacting with? Do you, like, recommend any mindset work that they do, or how do they face themselves, I guess, before they go into the room with someone else?
Yes. So I love this question, because in some of the workshops that we do, it's two-sided. It's, how do I prepare, understanding the person I'm going to be learning about, presenting to, building a relationship with. And to do that, you have to know how to present yourself. So it is both sides. In fact, I thought about my book being sort of split in half, where one was sort of how to reach out and the other is how to be on the receiving end. And so that's where personal brand comes in. That's probably a whole other book, but there is some of that woven into the knock method. And a lot of it has to do with when you do your research about the conference you're going to. Like I'm going to one this week, and I was reading the website last night to try to understand more about the audience and the program and all of that. Or you're going to meet with someone that your manager suggested that you connect with in another team, and you've never met him before, and you're in a remote hybrid working world, and so you don't really know much about them, right? So you're preparing to know them. Then you think about, okay, what are the pieces of me that I can pull out that match that we could potentially have in common, or what we could be talking about. And so that's a starting point. Is if you're not quite sure, you don't feel confident to just say, this is who I am, and this is my elevator pitch, and this is my summary
Right.
at the top of my resume, which most of us don't. Then think about the context in which you're in. And personally, this has come up for me when you mentioned in the beginning wearing multiple hats and having even multiple personal brands or personas. Like you're an author, you're now also a podcast host, right? Like
Right.
you have new titles that you're adding.
Yes.
Not just titles, but problems that you're solving and meaningful work that you're doing. And people have always asked about that. How do you manage multiple brands, personal brands, we could say? And my answer has not changed too much, although I continue to see it present itself, which is I pull out the pieces of me that are applicable to a situation. You don't know exactly what you're going to face. Always you can prepare for a conversation like this. So I kind of know the pieces I might start pulling out, but that's a good place to start, is to think about your audience and then sort of adjust your approach or present the pieces of you that fit the scenario, so that you then have something to rally around and something to relate on. And so that's
right.
advice there as a starting point.
Yeah, I love that. So would you say, and this is the advice that I give, is that you kind of need to know your own story so that you can access the parts of it that are going to help you relate to the other person?
Yes, and we may have multiple stories, right? Like your
Right.
story, or your definition of story could be your whole story, all of
Right.
it. Or it could be your story of, of your first career, or your story of your upbringing, right? So
Yeah.
story could be,
Yeah, I definitely have like categories where, and I walk through them with my clients, where we do like your business origin story, your story of intense struggle, the story of a client you got to win for. Cause that's my whole, I'm story obsessed, which I think everyone knows about me, which is probably why you're like, hey, look at my book and let's talk about it. And I was like, yes, let's do it.
Yeah, I love that you're focused on stories, and I would hear about storytelling. That's another example. We hear about these concepts of storytelling, and it's like, oh, everyone's doing it. It's the buzzword. But getting down to what is your story and how do you convey that? And you can shape the same story 25 different ways for context. And that's in the applicable side. In the career or job search space, that's where you craft your cover letter. You're telling a different story for a different opportunity every time with the same base story.
Right. You're still the same person. Like you said, you're just shaping it so that it fits the thing the goal you have for that moment, right? Because you don't always have the same goal. Our goals change depending on what we're doing.
Correct. And also to consider the goals of the organization or the team or the hiring team or the role. So that's where it's the double side comes back, is how do you tell your story in the context of their story?
Yes, I know. And that could be confusing. And yes, we are recording this live. Someone just asked, is this live? It is literally live. We're hanging out together and talking with Rebecca Leader, and we're about to ask question number 2. So are you ready for question number 2?
I'm ready. I'm warmed up.
All right. So, and listen carefully for it, because this is kind of a trick question, but it's the best way I've found to ask it. So what is the biggest pain your client is in right now, and what do they think they need to solve it? Because you know what they actually need, but what do they think they need?
There are multiple answers to this question, so I'm
Okay,
aligning
you can.
around one theme.
Yeah, you can do a couple, or you can pick one.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna brainstorm a little more. Can you repeat the question one more time?
Yes. So, what is the biggest pain your client is in right now, and what do they think they need to solve it?
Okay. From the business standpoint, one of the biggest pains I've noticed is employee retention.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Or in another way, I would say weaker employee retention would be the pain.
Right.
Goal would then be improving employee retention. There's just been so much shuffling in this economy. And so there's that lack of confidence from the business side, but also from the individual side. Is this the right opportunity for me? Or are my employees going to stay, so that we're planning for the next fiscal year? And I don't know if, we're going to have that certainty in place. So there's a confidence piece, but there's so much in flux right now. And so I think organizations are trying to appreciate and invest in their workforces and in their employees, so that people do feel confident and fulfilled, and that they're doing meaningful work, and that they are connected and included, and that they can be themselves at work and bring their culture and bring their story to work, as well as doing their job. So I think that's probably the biggest pain. What do they think they need? That's a very multi-pronged answer. I don't think there's one answer to that.
Okay. But what's the thing you hear most often that, because this is how I reflect on it in my own business. I'll hear them say this, if we could just, and then a sentence, and they'll probably say it a few times. And when I've heard 3 people say the same thing, I'm like, that's what they think will solve it.
Well, I keep coming back to the problem. If we could just make our employees feel like they're valued and that they're appreciated, and that we could do that in the context of so many challenges that we're facing as a company, right? So I'm looking
to so how do they
make this more concise? But
yeah,
the problem leads to I think it leads to more questions than answers, and that's where there are so many answers, right? Is it is a hiring freeze the answer, so that we focus on our current employees, or does that actually reduce morale because people feel like, oh, we're not hiring, we're not doing well, maybe I should look for another position, right? So that's an example. Maybe you can lead me to the concise response, but I think there are so many elements at play right now that I haven't heard one common answer.
Okay. That makes it complicated for you, right? Because you're like, okay, they're throwing all these things at me, and now I need to think of how I can reframe what they think they need. Because what is the big thing that you're helping them with to address this problem? Maybe let's work backward.
Yes, I love it. My organizational clients and I are working to invest in employees, in teams and groups, including employee resource groups. So women's leadership groups, for example, or women of color, for example, have these affinity groups within organizations. So investing in these groups to provide education, empowerment, confidence, and make them feel heard, seen, and also provide resources and learning and development, so that you're not only doing your job, you are creating community, and you feel connected, and you feel included, and you feel that you're also gaining new skills that you can use in this job or in your future job should you move on, but that you're developing as a person. And so I think that solution becomes when we can demonstrate to employees or to individuals that we are investing in them as individuals beyond simply an employee at an organization. Of course, that's the basic level. how do we go above and beyond that? And I've seen articles on both sides. It's not necessarily ping pong tables to lure you back into an office. It's not necessarily, certain benefits. It is, how do you feel like your employer, your team, your leadership believes in you, cares about you as a whole person.
Yeah.
And that requires understanding and also organizational challenges of figuring out is this a hybrid working situation? Is this remote? Do we need people in the office full time? How does that work? So these are some examples, again, potentially lead us to that concise response. I think
I got it.
Investing in individuals who are part of your organization. And that's the solution that we're solving for through the lens of, we have this methodology and training and learning and development on how to build skills to develop higher quality relationships in your career. That could mean with a mentor. That could mean with your hiring manager if you're looking for a role internally on a different team. That could mean with your colleagues. That could mean with your interns. That could mean with your customers, right? So there are all these career relationships, and depending on what situation you're in, you might want to build stronger relationships in your career, and you can pull from this bag of tricks, so to speak.
Right, with the methodology.
That is your priority of the moment. And so when organizations invest in this kind of learning and training, it's not just for the moment. It's not just for this fiscal year. It's not just for, this year's top 5 priorities. It's for all of our priorities at work, and it's going to help you in your career. It's going to help you in that presentation to the executives. It's going to help you when you're having a coffee chat because you're kind of interested in what this other team does that you might want to, explore moving to. So there's a lot of there are a lot of avenues that this kind of learning and development can apply to. And so when my perspective is, when you invest in your employees and help them feel that they are, they are human, and you're them as a person, and you're enabling them to grow and learn in their role, and also in your company, and also in their lives and their broader career. I believe that is one of the avenues to sort of solving employee retention. That's not the main point, but on the way to that, you are solving for that kind of pain point.
Yeah. And okay, I have an idea, and you can tell me if this is right or not. It sounds like you're helping them. What they need to do is build higher quality relationships. And the only real way to do that is to understand that each human is individual, and to be more flexible with their approach while they're thinking long term, so that they can earn that trust and keep that employee feeling valued, so that they want to stay and build those relationships further.
So I love that perspective. And that is from the company, the organizational standpoint.
Right.
Also the sort of meta based, like they're sort of circles within circles here. Yeah. But it's also about investing in your people so that they have the skills to build those relationships, and they feel empowered to do that as well. So it's both at the same time.
I think that's part of the flexibility, right? Is knowing that people don't want to stay where they are. They want to progress and change and get better. And when you give them the opportunity to do that, you're saying, I trust you to take these resources and use them in a way that best fits you as you're part of the organization.
Sure. That's a really great perspective. And I had never thought of it exactly with that angle. And I hadn't really thought of it from the trust angle. I think that's embedded there.
Definitely.
See it more. It is embedded there, and it is not only trust. It is you are a part of our team. You are a part of our community, and again, it's going above and beyond investing in your employees simply as an employee, and going into the more human level. And so the work that I do is about not only how to build those relationships, but the benefits as well, which I've been fortunate to lean on some amazing research from
that's the best
scholars that I admire so much. And the research talks about the health benefits of building high quality relationships in your career and in your life. They can be both,
Right.
and that your well-being improves. And in fact, they've found research that says your heart rate is healthier and your blood pressure can be healthier when you have those kinds of relationships, like a mentor who you trust, either at work or outside of your company, that you can lean on when you're looking for advice for work, right? Or when you have colleagues that you all get along and you can talk about challenges and opportunities and even just become friends. Those kinds of high quality connections that are positive, mutually beneficial, long term, those can improve your health and your well-being. When you feel happier, you're probably, feeling better. Not probably, I've experienced it myself.
Right. Yeah.
You're more likely to feel more satisfied and fulfilled in your day, and your work is a big part of your day. And so the well-being piece is huge. And that's one of the answers to your question, I think, as well, as investing in the well-being of your employees can lead to that pain point of reduced employee retention.
Yeah.
Organizations can't solve for it exclusively. There could be a big part of someone's career story where maybe they're just not flexing a specific muscle that they have, or they built a new skill and they want to use it more. And the only way to do that is somewhere else or in a different role, right? So you can't solve it for everyone, but you can make employees feel valued and safe and give them tools, learning, development, growth opportunities to feel valued and to feel well. And that can potentially lead to, a stronger workforce, and as well as the collaboration piece. So think of it as a network and a web. And the more you feel like you can connect across the organization, the more you're going to feel secure. If you just made you had a big presentation, it didn't go quite as well as you wanted it to, but you reach out to someone on another team who was there and ask them for feedback or advice, or just to be a sounding board to help give you reassurance, right? So these skills, and when you invest in developing these skills and also in your people, you then feel, if you're the employee or the individual, you then feel empowered or capable of feeling supported in those times where maybe you fell a little bit flat or you need a little extra help. Or even personally, when you're having a tough week and you need work, to maybe cut you a little slack, or your teammates will step in and help you, and you'll do the next time someone else needs it. So there's a lot here, but I think that it comes down to supporting individuals and helping to make your people feel supported, valued, well, and that could lead to solving for that pain point.
I love that. Yeah. We actually have a question. I was wondering if you wanted to take it before we jump into your book a little bit. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to bring it up on the screen here. And the question was, how would you deal with workplace toxicity between two employees that you are aware of? So let's say you're advising an organization, or you could do it from an individual standpoint. What's some advice you would give them on bettering this relationship based on the framework that you've developed in the knock method?
Oh gosh, I would like to have more information about the situation. I don't have enough detail about the flavor of workplace toxicity, or if you're aware of it because you're their manager, or if you're aware of it because someone confided in you. Like, I have so many questions. I don't know if I can answer fairly, but if there's an opportunity to get more detail, I would love to ask for that. If not, I can sort of try to take my best response.
I mean, yeah, if it's going to be more detail, it'll come in 2 minutes because of the live delay.
Yeah. Well, maybe that'll help halfway through. Okay, so workplace toxicity that you know about, did it say between two individuals?
Yeah, between two employees. So, like, I think it is from a managerial perspective. Like, there's toxicity between two employees and you're their manager. How do you deal with it?
Sure. So in that situation, I mean, communicate, and also know, this is something where getting to know the people that you work with on an individual level will help you later if situations like this arise, because what one person may interpret as something may be completely interpreted differently by another. And so if you build those relationships to really understand what makes someone tick, or what throws them off, or what offends them, or what their sensitivities are, you would be able to navigate that, I think, more appropriately in that type of situation. If that relationship hasn't been built yet, or it's maybe a new manager or new employee, then starting to build that relationship, starting to ask questions about how you work best. Some people like privacy. Some people want to tell you everything. I did
Yeah.
have an employee on my team previously who had taken a training, and he gave me this huge questionnaire that he completed about him and his work style when he came onto my team. And it was hugely valuable. It took a while to read through and internalize, but it was very helpful to me because I understood more about how he liked to receive feedback. Like, some people want you to sort of ease into it. I believe this individual said, like, I would like you to tell me before you're going to give me feedback, just so I'm not blindsided. And so if there was ever a time where I had feedback, positive or otherwise, I would say, like, that was a really great meeting. Like, could I, give you some feedback or some ideas? And then he knew, okay, this is coming, and it was more direct. So all that is to say, the more you can get to know those individuals, if you're the one who's potentially moderating that conversation dynamic, then trying to get to know them a little bit better. Some people may be guarded in that situation, and so it could take time. But really communicating, getting sort of each person's perspective, and then also maybe aligning on the company values or the individual values. So perhaps something got a little bit out of line, and maybe you could circle back around understanding and creating an inclusive culture, and that's sort of the environment we're trying to create. Let's talk about how we could get back to that, or how does this maybe not align with your values? Maybe that's why you're struggling with this situation. What is important to you in this situation, and why, what is your response, or what happened? And perhaps there's some underlying value there that you can understand about the person. And sometimes it's just sort of distilling two different languages where people aren't speaking the same language, but the third party could identify the common layer, and
like objectively
saying the same thing. You're just using different words, but you're kind of mismatched. So as a copywriter, you probably face that often.
Yes.
But those are some initial ideas without a lot of context. And it comes down to really trying to understand people below the surface of their job title and their job function.
I love that. Yes. So it all comes down to like understanding that humans are interesting creatures that are unique. We like to be talked to in different ways, and just understanding that might make things messy, but when we take the time to listen and understand, it really helps.
Yes, I could not agree more.
And I mean, it's the human element, right? Like, we're not robots, we're not AI, which could be a whole nother conversation because of the advances that's happening in AI right now. But we have to account for that element as we're trying to create work safety, as we're trying to build those relationships, or else we're not going to make the progress that we need. Do you think that's fair?
Yes, I agree with that perspective.
All right. So thank you for answering that question. I think you answered it very well. If there are any follow-up questions, you can slide them into the chat. But would you now talk to us a little bit about your book, which I got to be familiar with this morning? What made you think of writing this book, and how does it actually fit into the rest of your business story? Like, how do you use it as far as visibility, getting clients, that sort of thing? How are you using it as a tool to promote yourself?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. So the idea for the book came, it's now over 7 years ago. But my career is in digital marketing, and I'm one of the people that has what people call a jungle gym career rather than a ladder, where it's not necessarily a straight line, but it still had that common thread of digital marketing. And later I sort of discovered that community building and relationship building, but it took different forms. And so it started off in government technology marketing, and then it switched over to digital marketing agencies. And I founded my own small business, startup, and nonprofit marketing consulting company. And then
Nice.
eventually, thank you, wanted to go back to get some more experience with some bigger brands. So I worked with some other agencies, and then eventually ended up working for a large technology company in their marketing realm. And so kind of looking back, I was a writer. I wrote a blog, but it was more entertainment focused. And but I came up with this idea where I was noticing as a blogger, I was being reached out to by companies and brands. This was sort of the pre-influencer world.
Right.
To promote their brands or products or services, or to try it out and see if I wanted to write about it. And I realized that a lot of times the outreach to me was not personalized. And to the point where you'll see in the book, like there's an example of an email where someone literally copied and pasted my blog name in there. You can see it's in a different font, and they went down a list, that was not personalized. There weren't a lot of details about, oh, I noticed you wrote about XYZ. It's just very much like someone was using a tool to identify websites with certain, Google scores, and they thought maybe this would be a good link to get, pointing back to their website. And
right. They just care about the backlink.
Yes, which I have my opinions about, but essentially, I think that the relationship should be built there first. And of course, if you're ever referring to someone, give them credit where it's due. But when there is sort of this new relationship where it was a product or service I had never tried before, and someone was asking me to do that, of course, if there was the opportunity to do that and I was interested and it fit with my theme and my audience and what they wanted to read, then I might be open to it. But there were times where it was just very off, and I felt like they didn't understand me, but they didn't really take the time to get to know me either. And so I started to notice this trend that it was just very transactional. And I thought, I know that there's a better way, because I've been able to build relationships in different ways in my career, and it doesn't feel this way. So what are the elements that are present that make it feel like a higher quality connection? And what are the elements that are missing when it's not? And so I started to dive into that idea further. And then I started interviewing some successful professionals who I thought were building high quality relationships. And as a result, one couple built a school. They're in the first chapter of the book.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
I love their story.
Thank you. Yes, they're awesome. I've been to the school. It's amazing. In Chicago, the Walcott College Prep, shout out. And then there were nonprofit founders who are combating hunger, and one that supports resources for people who've been touched by cancer, Twist Out Cancer, shout out to you as well. And so there are all these individuals or people who have been building relationships, and as a result, they built communities, they built companies, they built organizations that are solving problems and creating, having a positive impact. And so I started interviewing people, and then I wanted some research to really see why it was working or how it was working. And that's where that third component came in, of understanding the value to our health and to our well-being, not just individually, but as teams, as organizations, as communities, when we have tighter threads among each other. And so that's how the idea came to be, was from personal experience being on the receiving end of outreach messages. And the second part of your question was, how does it play into the work that I do today? So I founded my company, Opportunities Knock, and it is a learning and development company. So I have my curriculum, the Knock method, that I deliver in multiple formats, online courses, as well as providing curriculum to weave into learning and development programs at organizations and companies. And then I teach workshops as well. So it's very malleable, and it can be customized to sort of fit an organization's values, or even their terminology, or the roles that they have on their team and the kind of work that they do. And so I teach students and student groups, and partner with career services as well. And so it applies to so I say career growers, career builders, and career changers. So if you're building your career, you're maybe a student or an entrepreneur building a business even. If you're a career grower, you are developing your career, whatever that looks like for you. Perhaps
Right.
you get to the next level. Perhaps you're happy in your role and you're just sort of looking to bring more meaning into your life outside of your role. Perhaps you're looking to move teams or maybe even switch careers. Which brings us to career changers. And so it's designed to support people at any point in their career, that you could come back to the knock method whenever you are preparing for a coffee chat, or you need a little confidence boost and you don't have to read it cover to cover. I wanted it to be something you could sort of flip through and get quick value and a quick boost of positivity and reminder of how to feel prepared. And so that's what I do. And I'm finishing up a graduate certificate program in learning design and technology in the year. So
Congratulations.
thank you. So that's helped me to upskill myself in instructional design and in education and training. So I can craft courses and curriculums for organizations that align around their leadership and development goals, connection, inclusion, and then sort of the job search and career readiness. So for new hires and onboarding groups, as well as for workforce development programs.
So the book kind of then is supplemental to the education piece, whereas they can get the book, maybe it's part of their materials budget or something like that. Like if we're talking about an increase on ROI, right, for you going and educating, they can do that. But when you're there, you actually customize the lesson so it's better and more intense than the book's frameworks, because you're taking that and pulling it out and saying, this is how it works for your organization, or this is how it works for your growing career path.
Correct.
Does that sound okay?
Yes, and I love that you were able to distill that. So recently I taught a workshop for a women's mentoring program at a biotech company, essentially. And it was completely tailored to the mentoring element of the NOC method, which is part of step 5, which is keep giving, practice generosity and gratitude. That's the last K in NOC, in the acronym of NOC. And so that was customized to the mentorship lens. And other times it's very much customized to the job search lens or to the career development or leadership development lens. So again, we come back to this theme of sort of pulling out the pieces that apply to the context.
Yes.
And that I'm very high touch, very customized, but also the curriculum is also able to be delivered in a repeatable format for existing programs or to be built into your learning management system.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so are you ready for your one big sentence? This sentence is long, y'all. I'm not going to lie to you. It's long because Rebecca does a lot of stuff, okay? She's a talented individual. She performs many tasks. So let's go ahead and take a look, and you can tell me where you think there needs to be a little bit of some adjusting. And after that, we're going to tell people exactly how they can get in touch with you to work with you. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Okay, here we go. Like I said, it's long. It's going to take up a giant chunk on the screen here. All right. So this is your one big sentence, okay? I help professionals build better relationships based on research and support that points to the benefits for both employees and employers by creating opportunities for flexibility and further investment in both teams and individuals, trusting that those resources and feelings of work safety, both emotional and physical, will grow both connection and quality in the workplace long term. Woo!
Wow. Oh my gosh.
You should feel pretty great about yourself right now, because that's what you do. That's a lot, and it's awesome.
Thank you so much. Wow. I love it. I'm already like, my editor will, if he sees this, he would be like, okay, we need to break this down into smaller sentences, which was not my
right.
In the book.
I know. Even my editor's heart is like, Kristin, why? But that was the way to get the one big sentence, because what you do is so multi-layered, let's say.
Thank you. Well, and amazing that you wrote this while we were having a conversation. So I'm breaking it down in my mind, and I love it. I think I would probably replace better with deeper relationships, because
Oh, yeah.
people might ask, like, what is a better relationship? And it can change and it can evolve. And what might be a great relationship now, the way that you and I are interacting on a podcast, in 2 months, we might be interacting on a guest blog post, right? Or another article or some other project. And so a deeper relationship could be longer lasting and take different shapes.
I love that.
Let me see the next part. Benefits for both employees and employers, and even prospective employees, which I don't think we need to necessarily say, but I think that's a
But
part.
if you are one, if you need one, you should talk to Rebecca. So just throwing that out there.
Thank you. Flexibility, I love, and further investment in both teams and individuals. Yes. So investing in our employees, whether that means emotionally investing to really understand what makes them tick or what makes them kind of back off, like in the question that was asked of us when there is sort of a conflict in the workplace. It could also be that investment in learning and growth and development,
Right.
or investing in their development for another role. Like, that feels hard sometimes when you your employees
Yes.
don't want to lose them, but you know they're going to be happier. And then trusting that those resources and feelings of work safety. Interesting. I would love to hear your thoughts on that piece, because that's sort of a new angle that I hadn't articulated previously.
I actually, so is it okay if I take it down?
Yeah,
Are we
yeah,
good?
go ahead.
Okay. So I'm not actually like an expert in that, but I have a friend who is, Kate Donovan. If you want to look her up, she has Fried the Burnout podcast.
Okay.
And when she came on the show last week, she talked so much about work safety, as far as like, do they feel safe to even say things, right? But do also they feel physically safe? Because if they don't feel physically safe, they're never going to feel emotionally safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was so interesting, and I loved that. And I can, I told, like, we geeked out on our offices, but I told her, I was like, yeah, there's like so many things in my office that just make me feel safe, like that I put there to make me feel better so I could be free to work.
Yes.
And so, yeah, so that's something that I feel like is just coming out. Like, people are just starting to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're interested more in that, you could go listen to the episode or just go listen to her, because she's so amazing. But that's how she helps people get out of burnout. She's like a burnout recovery expert.
Thank you. I love that piece. And it does point to the well-being part of these high quality relationships. And there have been situations in my own career where I shared very personal information with my manager or my mentor or people that I worked with, because I needed their support, and I needed support in the form of extra time off or just understanding when I wasn't operating at 100%. So that psychological safety is a part of building these high quality career relationships that I'm hoping to help cultivate.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, so let's say that we have some, what is it? Career builders, career changers, and what's the third one?
Career growers.
Career growers out there in the world, and they're like, I need Rebecca's help. What is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yes, well, I'm very excited because this is the first time I've said this out loud, not much less recorded live. I have a new website. So please excuse any kinks that are still being worked out and new bells and whistles coming soon. But the new website is buildmeaningfulcareers.com.
Okay.
And if you happen to Google the knock method, you will still get back to buildmeaningfulcareers.com. But
nice.
You find information about knock there. You can purchase your copy of the book, and you can also learn about events. I do have monthly knock neighborhood nights where you can come talk to people that might be also going through career challenges or growth, or maybe looking to build your network. And they're casual chats, and you can bring your questions, get feedback, and sort of informal coaching. So you'll find community resources there and more information about my workshops.
All right. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. There's one little question I ask at the end for our listeners who are soaking up your amazing wisdom. If you could tell people out in the professional world, business owners, people who operate businesses, one little nugget of wisdom, what would it be? And if it's something you already said, feel free to reiterate it.
For business owners,
Business owners and operators, anyone who's in business, right?
one idea is that success takes a long time. Sometimes it does not happen overnight, which we know.
Right.
But recently I wrote about planting seeds and that sometimes opportunities come from seeds planted years ago, months ago, decades ago. So if you're going through a challenging time, just keep going and knowing that the seeds that you're planting now could come to fruition tomorrow, or it could take a little while. Um, and and that's sort of my advice. You know, people have said to me, when someone said to me, "Oh, you're way ahead of me, you wrote a book," and I said, "Do you know that it took me 6 years to write it?" And they had no idea, because you see the outcome. And so know that as a business owner or operator, know that the work that you're doing behind the scenes is contributing to your outcomes, even if it's not visible yet. So
I love that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And if you want to write a book way faster than 6 years, just hire me to write it for you. Just
I'll
thought I'd throw that out there.
yes,
All
well, I
right.
didn't tell you then, but
I know. No, I'm saying for all the people right now who are like, I really need a book. Yeah, I will help you with that. If you want to work with me, I would love it.
yes.
Um, Thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming on. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And I want to remind all of the listeners that your business story matters. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.